China EVs and More, where my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the China EV, AV, and mobility sectors. We will open the room up at around the 40-minute mark to anyone who's keen to ask us any questions. What Lei and I discussed today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. If you enjoy this room, please find us on LinkedIn, get the word out to your friends, and of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Lei, and I am the Managing Director at Sino Auto Insights, a Beijing-based consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sector. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, which of course, I encourage you all to do. Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. And I am your co-host, Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. This is episode number 52, our first episode in the year of the tiger. And Happy New Year again. And as you've noticed, we cut the introductions a little bit shorter, so we have more time to discuss.
I stuttered on that one a little bit, so.
Yeah, but you know us by now, so we felt like, just trying to change some things in the new year. So did you know that there's only 10 weeks left until the start of the Beijing Auto Show or Auto China 2022?
It's the quiet before the storm, I think.
Yeah, I can feel the excitement build up. So it's been a relatively slow couple of weeks due to the Chinese New Year holiday break. The sales numbers reporting have been sporadic. We still haven't heard from the big guns, Tesla and Wuling, on their sales. But I just tweeted the latest numbers as of today, my time. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Just catching up on some of the headlines going all the way back to...
to the year of the ox. The year of the ox.
Yeah, to the year that, we start on the first day of the new year. Interestingly enough, Daimler AG became Mercedes-Benz AG on the first day of the year of the tiger. So that was a big change. And recently we heard the big merger, Faurecia and Hella, right? Two of the top suppliers combining in a group called Forvia. Forward via, right? And some of the recent headlines, I guess, for me, if you look at my friend circle, my WeChat moments, it's been inundated with Winter Olympic Games and a lot of sports, right? So during the Chinese New Year, the national punchline of the men's team losing to Vietnam, hello. And then the ladies, the women's team beating Japan and then Korea in crazy fashions, right? And then the Winter Olympic Games, right, with all these narratives, Eileen Gu, there's a lot of talk on that. Yes. I felt like, there's less of a automotive feel. And then BYD came out with this new slogan or claim, technology green future. Zeekr recently joined the 10K cumulative delivery.
Let me add to that BYD slogan or kind of virtues. It seems to be westernizing a little bit, right? Simplifying and really starting to reach out towards the West.
Yeah, trying to and just what happened today, right? With XPeng signing up those two dealer partners in the Netherlands and Sweden. So they're already opening the experience center this week in Sweden.
I'm thinking that He Xiaopeng and Brian Gu listened to our podcast with Alex Close and were like, we got to get on this.
Yeah. What else? Oh, the California DMV disengagement report with all the Chinafornia companies on there doing actually pretty well in terms of this engagement. And Cruise... big investment, right? And announcing it's opening up to the public to try out their robotaxis in San Francisco.
If you read the small print on that cruise, it's open at night, I think from like 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's not when San Francisco is at its highest traffic. So Cruise is actually playing wiffle ball versus an AutoX or a DeepRoute or a Baidu, who are, now they're geofenced, but they're doing it during the day, during daylight hours, right?
Sure. And I think that's why they had, 0 disengagements in their driverless mileage, right? I think they reported some mileage. And there's relating to what we talked about last episode, what's going on with JVs, right? Kia made a new announcement. This wasn't reported at all for some reason. I didn't see it in the Western press, that they're investing $900 million into the JV, which is announcing a new name, I think around the Auto China time. And they're planning to launch one EV every year until 2027, starting with the EV6 this year. And it's one of those things where the joint venture equity share is being changed. I think they'll make that announcement. And
so Hyundai's fortunes are much different in China versus the United States. The United States, they're firing on all cylinders. They both have commercials, Kia and Hyundai, for the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And I just read that it's $6.5 million per 30 seconds. So that Ioniq they're rolling that out and they're leaning into that, right? So it's a great looking car. It's a little expensive, I think, but it's a great looking car.
Yeah, I just did a count. So GM, Hyundai, Nissan, Kia, BMW, Toyota, and what do you know? Polestar. Polestar is making its first appearance in the big game.
Yeah,
and they're trying to, with their no message, right?
no supermodels, no
status quo, right? No supermodels, no. So, yeah. So
and we should remind folks
that big announcement.
We should remind folks that Polestar is launching their vehicle manufacturing in the United States for the Polestar 3, which is an SUV.
And China.
So, yeah, exactly.
And China this year, right. I'm actually, very much looking forward to that launch. And today also, the 5-year, $5 billion charging network announcement today, right? Allocating these different, first year is $615 million. So build this network on the interstate highways, I guess. And Texas, I think, got almost 10% of that, like over $60 million for some reason.
Well, think of it, Lei. The F-150 is coming out, the Hummer's coming out, the Silverado e-Silverado's coming out. So that's where Ford and GM are going to have a lot of their eggs in that basket, right? So it makes sense. Actually, it makes sense to me that they would do that, because Texas is such an important state for trucks and SUVs.
Yeah. And speaking of Polestar, Volvo made a couple of big announcements just a few days ago, right? The Northvolt plant and the mega casting following the footsteps of Tesla, right? So that's pretty much the headlines. January sales, I guess we can go into a little bit. After the New Year's Day, Chinese New Year's Day, with 8 or 9 announcing, then it got pretty slow. BYD announced theirs, right?
A monster number, another monster number.
Yeah, and I guess the big 6, one is missing, which is very concerning, is WM Motor. So in recent months, they've reported numbers pretty much like everybody else on the first day of each month, but not this year. And then there was a lot of chatter on NIO, right?
Let me add this comment about WM. There was an article that said that WM, it might be in trouble for reducing their range on their vehicles. And
yeah, it was
a rumor, right?
No, I'm saying that they just haven't gotten into a good rhythm, right? You're supposed to look up like other brands. The sales are going up, right? But it just doesn't feel the same way. And NIO, I think NIO, a lot of chatter on their going below 10,000 units. But I think for them, this is very normal based on the seasonality, based on their positioning, based on what they're setting up for the second half of this year. I'm not worried at all, basically.
Yeah, because you would normally expect a blowout month like December for most of these automakers, especially January, to be a slower month. Okay. But the only company that I know that's kind of bucked that trend is BYD, right?
Leap Motor, and Neta bucked the trend.
Yeah.
BYD pretty much about the same. So 93,000 units.
But I also believe, we also have to really point back to perhaps there are still supply issues with the Neos and some of these other companies, especially as they're filling the pipeline to ramp on some of these cars, right?
Mm-hmm. And going forward, the interesting narrative for this year in the BYD Tesla rivalry is BYD officially announced their target of 1.2 million, and Tesla globally is supposed to be 50% up, so roughly 1.5 million. So that'll be interesting to see who's gonna, get to their numbers, or whether it could be close, or whether BYD does much more than 1.2 million. And from what's happening in the rest of the global industry, there's been additional hiccups in the beginning of the year or beginning of the month. Toyota, right, shutting down. Ford shutting down. The Canadian trucker.
That border
right?
crisis, right?
Yeah, border trucker is affecting production. Several companies. So these things, right? And batteries, CATL, their valuation dropped by what? A couple of 100 billion RMB or something?
Yes.
So,
but remember that January is kind of a notoriously slow month in the United States for car sales. So what they're probably trying to do is clean the house to set up for a good 2022. I would believe. And yeah, I'll say two things. BYD still has the benefit of the doubt from the market. So I think they're sandbagging on that 1.2. Tesla doesn't have that luxury. They're at 1.5. But we also need to look at the fine print when it comes to Tesla, right? If they get to 1.5, but they're taking parts out of their car to build that 1.5, does that mean that the pressure's starting to get to them? I'd been interviewed by Bloomberg about Tesla entering Japan and what I thought their sales was going to be, growing in Japan or not. And I think that 160,000 units being shipped to Europe last year, somebody's got to make up for that if Giga Berlin can get online pretty quickly and ramp. So I don't see 160,000 units being shipped to Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, and Australia. So that 1.5 million China domestic demand is going to have to make up for a lot of that, right?
And it looks like Giga Berlin is being delayed again based on the latest numbers. And Tesla is facing a lot of scrutiny in recent days and weeks. First, the FSD, and then recall. I think they just announced their third recall in like a week or something. Something about windshield fogging up, if I remember correctly. And FSD regulatory scrutiny, right? On our good friend Taylor has posted quite a few of the videos. And, so it's whatever you want, how you want to interpret it.
But at the end of the day, at least in the United States, it's almost like NHTSA playing catch up, because if Tesla really does have quality issues, it's going to catch up to them eventually, right? Because they go from 500,000 vehicles on the road to 1 million vehicles on the road. And it's just more people, more of their products in the hands of more people. And if the failure rate on certain parts is pretty high as a percent, obviously with more cars on the road, there's going to have more failures. So are we getting to a critical mass where we can point back to manufacturing and quality and engineering issues that are akin to more traditional automakers? I think we're going to see that, right? Because, we had spoken with John McElroy, right? We had the pleasure of speaking with him last week. And he told us that one of the cars he drove, a Tesla, fit and finish was amazing. The other car that he had driven, I think it was a Plaid S, he thought it was like just okay. And so consistency is part of, a good automaker's calling card, right? Toyota is pretty consistently high quality across the board, across products. So one of Tesla's still growing pains, and it's not going to get any easier because they're putting 2 more manufacturing or facilities online in this year, is having that global quality and reliability consistency. So,
and at the same time, I think Giga Shanghai is adding capacity.
1 million units.
Yeah, that is interesting. And this year, if you remember in the earnings call, right, it's all about capacity. It's all about ramping up. No new models. What they're facing with Berlin delays. So I think Giga Shanghai, in terms of capacity utilization, is still going to be high. And then plus now we're especially with the California DMV report coming out, and all these companies and comparing Tesla and yeah, that was fun.
Hey, let me ask you on China social, that missing part didn't get picked up, did it?
That missing part, yeah, I think it's just starting to break and
people too excited about Eileen Gu.
Yeah, yeah. People excited about Eileen Gu and Hanyu,
yes,
the Japanese male skater,
yes.
more than anyone else for some reason.
So for those that aren't familiar with the issue, I think CNBC had broken that made in China Model 3s and Ys, due to the chip shortage, the manufacturing team had decided to take what is supposedly a redundant control unit for steering out. And so there was no real announcement that it was being taken out. And I guess the manufacturing teams signed off on it, believing that because it's redundant, there's very low risk. But that's actually pretty controversial. And if they're doing that to make sure that sales volume remains high, then that's kind of a red flag. So I was wondering if Chinese social media was really going to pick up on that, because the Chinese consumer could be pretty upset about them shipping a car with a missing part.
Yeah, it is being reported more widely since yesterday, I think. And but you know what? So remember the Shanghai Auto Show incident? That I don't think that was still finalized. Whatever final decisions that were made, or whether they reached any agreement, I think that's still up in the air. But I think Tesla, for the foreseeable future, is going to be facing these different type of scrutinies from all angles.
In multiple languages now.
Yeah, but so far it doesn't seem to affect really their sales, at least not yet. So that's that's the strange thing. And
the other strange thing, Lei, is that you and I agree that it's not. I don't think it's going to be quality. I don't think it's going to be reliability. I think it's going to be competition if they see weakness in the Chinese demand, right?
Right.
Because there's so many products. Because if there wasn't as many Chinese EV brands coming out with competitive products for the 3 and Y segments, I think they would still sell really well. But, ET5, P7, the G9, Xpeng, and Neo, they're all coming out with great cars. Lyric is coming out. The Mustang Mach-E is going to ramp. So there's some fierce competition here. I think they're going to do fine in Europe in 2022. I think they're still going to do fine in the United States, because just not as many products.
Yeah, I think they will be fine in an absolute sense. Their volumes will be okay. But if you look at the overall market and the pie keep growing bigger, to the forecast is 6 million vehicles, their share of the market will be smaller. So in that sense, that'll be competition. And I'm actually looking at a table of the BYD. Did you see BYD tweeted out a few sketches of their new models, the official count?
Unlike them. This is unlike them.
Yeah. The number of products, there's going to be, so they have in the Ocean network. They have the Dolphin, right? They're going to have a bunch of new ocean animal named vehicles come out this year.
Yes.
And they will also have a bunch of, they have the destroyer, right? This cruisers or ships named models come out this
That's
year.
strange.
Plus,
That's strange.
Yeah, plus the updated Han and Tom EVs this year. And also, you remember the landing ship? The trademark was given by Great Wall Motor. they kind of
they horse traded. They horse traded.
And BYD
right?
BYD gave away the Way trademark. It's like a
And you highlighted
bromance or something.
You highlighted the Han and the Dolphin. They're both selling at over 10,000 units a month. So I think that's going to be just mark that down. At least 10,000 units a month for each of those for the foreseeable future. No problem.
Right. And did you see the cherry QQ ice cream? Right. It's already 10,000 units in the first month of full sales. Mm-hmm. Right. The Wuling Mini EV style segment. So that segment is going to grow.
Yeah, I think that little city car is going to be a thing in China for sure. There are so many lower tier cities that will use that car. And so Sophia Yen, who's going to be the moderator for that panel, that you're going to be on the China Dominance panel for the mobility conference that starts on Monday. I told you that she did a video in Liuzhou.
Yeah, I saw that.
So
the Liuzhou model it's a huge thing in China.
They're allowing them to park them on the sidewalk. And so it's a thing.
Yeah. And looking ahead, February will be a tanking month because of the Chinese New Year. So if anybody does even better in February, I'll give them a big thumbs up. But the trend should be that you'll see a huge decrease in sales in February. And then March should be another record because March and April are usually the high points of the year, at least in the first half. So expect one of these smart EV startups to hit 20,000 units in a month sometime this year.
Let me add to that. There's going to be multiple. To get to 6 million units, there's going to be multiple brands that need to get to 20,000 units a month, like consistently, right? And it needs to happen, to your point. I think you'd mentioned this in 2 podcasts ago, where December sales of 500,000 in 2021, that effectively needs to be every month in 2022 to get to the 6 million units, right?
Yes.
So
So January total market is probably going to be somewhere between 400,000 to 450,000, and then it will be much lower in February. In March, it will be over 500,000. Just watch. And, and then going forward, every quarter should be a bit higher based on, what happened in 2021. But then the big caveat is, again, what's going on is it seems that the chip shortage still is affecting a little bit.
The chip shortage and high demand will push prices higher.
Right. Quite a few models, they raise their prices. So Mini EV, right? I think Xpeng, did they raise their prices?
I think so.
Yeah.
Not to mention the complete elimination of the subsidy. So they're trying to adjust pricing to post-subsidy final MSRP for a lot of their cars. So
yeah.
Let me ask you this, Lei. So SAIC, I think, reported 72,000 unit sales in...
That's their group.
Okay, right.
That's their group sales.
Right.
So includes the JVs, includes MG, Rollway, includes Wuling. So everybody.
Do you have any idea from a fleet standpoint? Like, what's the percentage, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Fleet point, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would imagine at least over 90%, 95% are private.
Okay.
Fleet, meaning, like their sharing platform, right?
Or taxis or whatever.
Yeah, the Xiangdao and even the robot taxis. I don't know. I'd imagine it'll be minimal compared to private sales. And remember, Shanghai is one of the cities with one of the higher penetration rates of EVs because of the license plate auction, right?
Yeah. And let's take a step back, because I think this is worth telling the audience here. So a few different things, because I'd also mentioned it in my newsletter. Let's be smarter about 2022, at least for China, because if China is going to grow at 50% year over year, 21 to 2022, if these brands that we're tracking are growing less than 50%, they're actually losing share to the market, as you had alluded to with Tesla, right? Which is not a bad thing, but if the brand is strong, then it would at least equal the market or be more than the market, right? So that's number one. So when we're talking 21 versus 22, let's make sure that these brands are growing faster than the market, or is there something to be concerned about? That's number one. Number two, we also, and this is our part, this is our responsibility. So let's take this on. Let's also educate folks on not all cars are created equal, because the Han, the Dolphin, the price points are much lower than a Neo, than a Li Auto.
Sure.
So when we talk about these volumes, we're not talking about them. At least Lei and I aren't. And let's make sure we mention this, that these mass market brands, and I'll include XPeng because I would say they're premium, but they're not, a Neo premium or a BMW premium. They're a much lower price point than a Neo. They're playing around the 3 and the Y range from a pricing standpoint in China. So we would expect, Lei and I would expect that eventually in 2022, XPeng with the G9, with their new vehicles, to outpace Neo, Li Auto eventually. From a sales volume standpoint. So we should expect to see that. If XPeng is matching Neo on sales month over month over the next 7, 8, 9 months, then Neo's doing really well, or XPeng is not doing as well as we'd expect. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. Right, even the big three, the Sunshot, right, the XPeng, Li Auto, and Neo. Some people don't like them being compared simply because Neo's average selling price is a bit much higher, especially compared to XPeng. But Li Auto is, right, the one is over 330,000 RMB. So, and then Neta and Li Motor, they're completely in a different segment, right?
They're closer to Wuling than they are an XPeng. BYD is almost in between a Wuling and kind of a Neo. They're not. Do you see a Han competing against the P7?
Well, the Han is over. I think it's over 250,000 RMB. It's right, the flagship sedan. So in some way, yes, right. The P7 is what, 270,000, 300,000 RMB, somewhat. I think somewhat. And here's the amazing thing is we've been doing this pod for a year now, and we keep talking about these brands and sales. The foreign brands have virtually been non-existent. They have not been in our conversation, except maybe Volkswagen.
Not because we haven't wanted them to be.
Right. So that's the amazing thing is you see all these sales numbers ballooning, but the foreign brands just haven't been in the game. This year we're waiting for the Lyric, we're waiting for the Mach-E, and several others. But right, how much volume are they going to add? Not much. If you look at the grand scheme of things,
and this is driven partly because they were slow to market towards EVs. They need these vehicles to be multi-regional. Let's not say global. Let's say multi-regional, and so the level of complexity or degree of difficulty is much higher. And to be quite frank, they don't move as fast. So, but we're seeing this from China EV Inc. as they enter Europe, with the exception of the recent announcement this week from XPeng saying they're aggressively moving into the Netherlands and what was the second country?
Sweden. And Denmark.
Yeah, everyone else said they're actually being pretty conservative about their move into Europe, right? Because they know that it's a really, really careful process, and you only get this one chance to make a great impression across these 27 countries, right? Not only that, but it's the legacies don't have the first mover advantage, and they're just getting buried from a product level and a marketing level. The legacies with ICEs back in the day here in China, Buick was the surprise of the last 25 years from an automotive standpoint, one of the biggest surprises for China and GM. But now they need to rebrand effectively because they're moving from ICE to EV, and they've been very slow, very deliberate. And I don't know if they're going to pay for that, right? Because Volkswagen initially, 2021, for ID series hasn't been great. So is that indicative of the rest of the legacies in 2022? We'll see. But if there are challenges, it could be hidden because the market's getting 6 million units. So even if you're not doing that well, you could still sell 8, 10, 12, 13,000 units a month, right?
Right. And if you simply look at the smart EV startups having sold nearly 100,000 units last year, quite a few of them, Volkswagen is going to get there this year, but they're not a premium right brand position, so they're supposed to sell well.
Remember what I said? Are they growing faster than the market? That's one of the things, right? And remember, there's 4 cars that they're selling.
Right. Other than that, I think the California DMV disengagement report. I just wanted to say that this is regularly published in February of every year, right? Of disengagement in their operations from December the year prior to November of the year that's being reported. But I wouldn't read too much into these mileage per disengagement. That, remember, Auto X actually was first on that list in terms of MPD, miles per disengagement. I don't think it means that much, to be honest. And even Waymo, mileage is important, right? They account for more than half of the 4 million miles. It's important, but it's also meaningless in the sense that I guess we have to look at the whole picture. So you've done tens of millions of miles, but who's the first to commercially operate?
Let me understand this, though, Lei. Isn't that self-reported and kind of self-defined, what the disengagement is? There's no universal definition, at least for the DMV. It's self-reporting, right? So
yeah. So there's a lot of caveats
how it's defined
to looking at these numbers that you don't. Oh, Waymo is the best, and then you have that Guidehouse Insight,
which nobody understands.
So you look at these in a comprehensive way, and you try to make sense of it.
Because I've never met a Guidehouse employee in China ever. So,
but one of these, shall we mention that one of these companies?
We should.
Are we publishing tomorrow?
I'm trying to publish it tonight, maybe tomorrow. So let's just tell them. So our next Max episode is with the CEO, co-founder of DeepRoute. DeepRoute was incorporated in 2019. One of the co-founders, his name is Maxwell Zhou. Very, very, very entertaining, very intelligent person. And he was so refreshingly honest about all the questions and answers that he gave us to the questions that we asked. And it was funny. We laughed a lot. Some of the information was not publicly available, so we will leave some of that out. But other than that, he and his company is pushing the sector forward.
Yeah, he's probably the most interesting and provocative guest that we've had so far.
So far.
And he's young. He's only 35. And he's a doctor. He has a doctor's degree, and when he was younger, he won the robot competition. I mean, his just whole background is just Crazy.
For those that aren't familiar with DeepRoute, in December, they announced a $10,000 hardware software stack, and with using 3 solid state LiDAR and a total of, 3 solid state LiDAR, right? And so,
yeah, he actually broke down the $10,000. So make sure to listen to the pod.
And he admitted that, we're not going to be able to get enough cars on the road to hoover up all the data that we need. And so we need to partner with OEMs. So, and this goes back to Tesla. If they get FSD right, if they move over to LiDAR, they are going to be in the driver's seat because they sell 1 million, maybe in 2022, 1.5 million cars a year. It's not as easy as that, but it is a numbers game. It's just how many cars are on the road, and 1,000 cars is not going to get it done.
Yeah.
So the last thing we'll talk about, Lei, is
maybe you want to mention the mobility conference.
Yes. So Sino Auto Insights and Climate Transformed are co-organizing a massive, likely one of the largest mobility conferences this year, completely virtual.
Ever.
Yeah, maybe ever. Completely virtual, completely online. It is totally ambitious. We have a lot of friends of Sino Auto Insights and China EVs and more that will be participating, panelists, moderators. Lei has graciously accepted a panelist role for the China Dominance. We have Michael Dunn, John McElroy. We have Mujibi Jaz from Our Next Energy. We have Henry Sanderson from Benchmark Minerals. It's way too many to name. The keynotes are going to be Ariane Walker from Amazon Alexa Auto, which is going to be an amazing presentation because I heard she's very high energy, and they've recently made huge announcements with partnerships with some automakers, including our other keynote speaker, who is Stellantis, the global head of e-mobility. Her name is Anne-Lise Richards. She will be also presenting, again, completely virtual. And if you want more information, DM me. We've been tweeting about it on Sino Auto Insights. So I invite you all to join. There's going to be over 30 hours of content, over 65 panelists from the 14th to the 25th. So I guarantee you there's going to be something for you. We have a connected panel. We have an autonomous panel, a chip panel.
Batteries.
Yes, batteries. Roger Atkins. I didn't think we could pull it off, but right now we're just tying up some loose ends and we're blasting out notices. So please help support it. I think you'll get a lot out of it. And there should be probably 3 or 4 or 5 panels that'll be very interesting for the folks who are listening, especially our loyal listeners. The other one panel that Lei is participating on is the traditional panel. And I think that's going to be a rock star panel because John McElroy is going to talk about the U.S. Traditional automakers and what they're doing there. We have Victor Earl, who's going to talk about Europe, and Lei is going to be the China rep for discussing what the traditionals are doing. So it's going to be great. I really think it's going to become an annual thing, I hope. So.
And you have to be up at 1 a.m.?
Oh my goodness.
Is that correct? Because of time zone difference, accommodating mostly the West, I guess, Europe and
yeah.
US.
Because this is not a China-specific conference. This is a global conference.
No, it's global,
we have people from Asia, Brazil, Germany, UK. We have a strong contingent from Michigan. So that's super cool because I'm originally from Michigan myself. So yeah, thanks for your support, Lei. And we're burning at both ends because we're working on 1 or 2 projects together during the day, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
no rest for the wicked. But thanks for giving me that few minutes to talk about the conference. I'm pretty excited about it. That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lei, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAuto INSIGHT. You can find Lei on Twitter at Leixing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China EVs and more.